Earlier, we talked about the source filter theory, right? And we just imagined that this larynx is our source from where the energy is generated. And then the vocal tract was termed as filter, right? So that's a basic concept from the physics of speech sound, that how a sound is filtered through the vocal cavity, the tract, okay? So further on this concept, let me explain the source filter mechanism, right? That how this mechanism works, right? Um, Source energy and resonator. Source energy is the larynx, okay, the phonation basically, like the vocal folds when they are activated, when they are in action. That's basically the source energy. We cannot produce any speech sound without involving this vocal folds, right? This glottis. And then the role of the vocal tract is also very, very important because the shape, the size, and the resonances when they are activated, when they are created, that's done by the vocal tract. So these two are the really important concept, right? While discussing vowels earlier in this course, we talked about the quality of vowels. You might remember that point, that how we discussed about the quality, that the quality of vowel is different. And vowel is basically a complex sound, right? So what happens is that while producing a vowel sound, just for an example to you, that when we are producing a vowel sound, we are simultaneously producing various pitches, right? So the one pitch is on which the basic pitch on which the sound is created, right? So that's the basic pitch. But then there are so many other pitches at work simultaneously, and those pitches are basically the overtones through which the frequencies are determined for a speech sound. So that's an important idea, that how can we just keep in mind this concept of the source energy and the resonator, okay? So vocal tract, that acts like an organ pipe, right? It's like a pipe, okay? Organ pipe, and of course in a curved shape, right? Later we would develop this idea further into the tube models, right? So just keep in mind that that's taken as an organ pipe, okay? The filter. And we are just focusing on that idea of the organ pipe, and thinking about that how the sound travels through the vocal tract, right? Like the from the noise making source, which is the glottis, the vocal folds, from that place to the lip, right? So starting from here and then traveling through the cavity and then reaching lips, okay? So that's the concept behind the source filter mechanism. And what happens is basically that when on the basis of vibration, that energy is created, which is a basic requirement for the production of speech sound, okay? Then it is filtered, means that it is adjusted as per the shape of the vocal tract, because the shape is really important. We are changing the shape, like for consonants, might be we are touching the velar, we are touching the palate, or maybe somewhere the alveolar ridge, or maybe it's we are touching the teeth from behind. So what happens is basically that we are reshaping this filter, right? Now, if you take the example of vowels, what happens is that we are modifying, we are configuring basically that shape of the vocal tract from the inside. So that vocal tract from the inside does provide an important function, because from that we just create frequencies for a specific speech sound, and that filtering of the process, which is process basically that tends to amplify or damp the energy. The energy is coming from the glottis, right? So that's damp and that's amplified through the vocal tract, and on the basis of that, amplification and damping, the frequencies of a sound are determined. Like when the energy is getting out of your lips, some of it is reaching the listener, okay, in terms of the amplification, right? So that he can listen to your sound. And some of it is damped somewhere in the vocal cavity, and then that damping would create the requirement for the creation of frequencies. Let me show you figures so that you can have an understanding of this idea. If you can just go to this figure, it's the general idea that how the power is created, and the power, in speech production, the power is basically created from the lungs, and it is reaching the source. And this source is larynx, okay? Because the vibration is taking place here. And this vibration or the activity which is done by the vocal fold, that's an important point of the start of the production of speech sound. Now just think about this filter, right? Because this is filter when it is an oral sound. You see, this is the filter, right? And then when the air is traveling through it, you can see that what happens basically, that there is the pitch which is there, there's fundamental frequency here, right? And then there are frequencies, the overtones, which are determined by the shape of the filter, right? So that's the filtering of the air, right? And if it is a nasal sound, then you can also think about this filtering, right? Then the shape is different, right? So that's an important idea within the source filter mechanism. Let me further show you something more about this source filter mechanism, right? Here, okay? So this is basically the glottis, okay? The space between the two folds, okay? That's the larynx, and it's the source here, right? What happens is here is basically that the source is providing the basic energy, right? And you can see here, right, that in this figure, it's the filter, right? So in this filter, these are the overtones. You see, overtones, right? And these were the, the harmonics, more technically, right? Then when we just take the speech output, then it comes to us while just watching it on a spectrogram, right? So we would have this idea, right? This is actually the output, right? Now that how these waves are there, how these signals are, written there. The laryngeal signal, right? The vibration is this one, okay? And this, the overtones, which are basically the vocal tract signals, these are there. And then together, when we just watch them together on a spectrogram, then this is the shape which is coming to us. And just roughly, this is F1, and this is F2, and this is F3, right? So these are the overtones, right? The peaks which are available to us. And these are the harmonics, right? So that's an important point. And one last point just about the source filter mechanism. The larynx, the source, it works independently. Then this vocal tract, right? The filter. So the filter is working independently than the source, right? That's an important point. And that's why we have the frequencies which are created by sound in the filter. Those are different than the vibration, which is different. So that's an important point.